Hi everyone. Today we have a super interesting guest. Arseny is known as famous data science speaker, Kaggle master, and author of a famous Telegram channel in Russian. In addition, Arseny has a very rich experience in a number of machine learning related startups. I will put link in the description. And today we will talk about how the data science profession is going to change in a few next years with the advent of such tools as Copilot and ChatGPT, and how it's already changed. Arseny, hi.
Hey,
The first question is pretty easy. How long have you been working with Copilot? It seems you are one of the first person from ODS who start using it and write about using Copilot.
so it's a good question. As far as I remember, Copilot became available something like a year ago. Like it was closed beta or something. So I was not the very first user, definitely, but as soon as I was able to try it, I'm using it since then. So it's like something like a year, maybe a little more.
And what's your impression about it? How much does it speed up development?
So I think in the very beginning, I was kind of skeptical. It didn't work exactly as I expected. The whole experience was not perfect, was not smooth enough. So it took a little, but after maybe several days, it totally my opinion about it totally reverted. I realized it is very powerful tool to help with my routines. I was impressed how it can mm, finish somewhat convoluted functions that I was working with. And this I realized, well, it may take a little time to adopt it, to maybe change my behavior a little bit, but overall, I totally enjoy it so far.
And where is the main acceleration? Is it about speed of writing code, or, for example, it's all about less errors and more clean code? What do you think?
I don't think it helps writing more clear code. It helps with some aspects. First of all, it's way easier to write boilerplate code. So sometimes you need to write, I don't know, 50 lines of very stupid, very boring code. Like imagine you would like to define some data structure, some data class. And if you just annotate the class from the very beginning with some comment like, hey, this is a class that should contain X, Y, Z. And that's it. You just maybe define your first field, first attribute, and the rest is going to be appended pretty solid. So this kind of code is pretty easy to do. And I don't like writing this code, obviously, it's boring. And it helps me avoiding these boring routines. The same situation with tests. Once you just name your test properly, it's very likely that you will have a good test just by accepting this autocomplete. It's not always the case. Sometimes it suggests something stupid. Sometimes it suggests maybe some error, like test that does not actually test your thing or your um, I don't know exactly. Sometimes maybe 5% cases it will give you a bad test and you will have to debug it. But after some practice, you start writing better prompts and you start understanding what's good, what's not. Another thing that I like from Copilot is writing maybe some math related stuff. So for example, if you need to recall some formula, and you don't have it on top of your mind. You just name it, you name the function properly, and you have it. Like, I don't know, imagine you need some smoothed softmax or something like this. You may not remember a function right now, but Copilot does. So for many simple math utilities, I prefer to use Copilot. I trust Copilot more than myself in this kind of stuff. And finally, one unexpected use case, it helps with writing docs. So that's not something it was designed for, I think. I doubt that was their main goal, to make an assistant for the dogs, or I don't know, even for some tech articles, but it definitely helps. The quality of this text is not as good as it is for the code. It is somewhat similar to ChatGPT. It may write some generic stuff, which is very legit if you don't understand what is it about. But if you try to read, it's just a bullshit. It does not have the very good idea inside, but the structure is obviously very good. So it takes more time playing with prompts. And unlike the code base, you don't you are not in position just to accept everything. You have to read what it suggests. But sometimes, yeah, it definitely helps. It gives some inspiration. If you don't know, for example, you have some idea, but you don't know how to frame it, and you can just type some prompt, and it will give a good framework how to structure your docs.
And speaking about ChatGPT, what is your opinion? Is it better or probably worse, or it's completely different experience?
Experience is a proper word, is a keyword here, because what I like, what I love about Copilot, it's part of my regular flow. It's part of my IDE. I use PyCharm, and I just click the button to accept it, or I click the button to ask for another suggestion, and that's it. But in case of ChatGPT, I have to go to my browser, I have to open stuff, I need to enter prompt, I need to wait a second or several seconds to get some result. So it's not as smooth as it is for Copilot. I'm pretty sure that it will be there at some point, but for now, it's not exactly as good. But from another perspective, of course, ChatGPT helps with things where Copilot cannot help.
Yes, in my opinion, the quality of some strange function, for example, I tried to show some conversion function for export to ONNX or some different format, and in my opinion, ChatGPT cannot, Copilot cannot create such long functions with such with technical with such technical structure. But yes, the flow it's pretty complicated for it. But in my opinion, in future it will be completely different approach. The first one will help you to complete some easy stuff, and the second one it's like it will help you to think about the problem and have some ideas how to solve this problem. And let's move to more complicated topic. How long do you think ChatGPT will take to replace junior developer, or what's the level of ChatGPT right now?
I don't think it will replace developers, engineers. However, I do not believe it's here to replace, but it's here to assist. So We do not say that PyCharm replaces engineers. We do not say that some high-level frameworks replace engineers. They simplify our lives, our work. They make us more productive. And thus, I think that ChatGPT and other tools will make us more productive as well. So there are definitely some problems where ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever large language model helps us to be productive. Like it can be very technical thing, like, okay, I have this snippet in language X and I need it to be in language Y. A friend of mine actually uses ChatGPT a lot for transpiling some snippets on random languages he finds on Stack Overflow to transpile it to JavaScript for his front-end problem. It's a weird use case from my perspective, but it definitely exists. So would you hire a person to just to rewrite your C code to JavaScript code sometimes? Like, hey, buddy, would you please rewrite this function? I don't think so. And from other perspective, there are some problems that ChatGPT does not solve at all. Like, let's say you have some article that is promising for your field and you would like to, you can give a task for your junior engineer, like, hey, please read and think if it is applicable for our use case and if this method can be adapted with some constraints related to our product and so on and so forth. Definitely that's not a problem to be solved by ChatGPT or any other language model at the moment. Or you may have a problem like, hey, there is a bug somewhere between components and you cannot delegate this kind of problem to ChatGPT, but you can delegate it to the person. So it's just slightly different level of expertise.
But in my opinion, some task, of course, it's some specific tasks, but for example, if I need to prepare data set in some format or to write a code to, for example, to create some data loader, ChatGPT would be able to solve such task. And such tasks, they are pretty good for juniors developers sometimes. And yes, it couldn't solve everything that junior developer could solve, but in my opinion, that sometimes it will be even faster to create such function with ChatGPT than to create such function with some developer. As I mentioned already, I have a lot of different boards for computer vision, and for some of them there are pretty complicated ways to export models, to prepare that models, and ChatGPT can create me function to export the model to such board. And even I, for some time, will spend like 1 or 2 hours to read through documentation and create such function. But with ChatGPT, I just can write the code and put one prompt, and everything will be solved. But of course, I'm also thinking that it could not replace, and we are speaking about how to improve the performance. But I think that some task at this point that, for example, you need less amount of engineers in your team, and the expertise should be a bit higher than before ChatGPT, because there will be less easy tasks. But it's just my opinion about this thing. And
No, I'm completely on the same page with you. definitely you should leverage from people with higher expertise when you have these powerful tools. So imagine you just need to add some, let's say you have identified the problem and you need to write a snippet of code, and hey, I would like my magic tool, whatever it is. Is it Copilot? Is it ChatGPT or whatever? Like, I need to write this converting class, or I need to add some specific type of cache or something like this. And obviously, you can delegate it to ChatGPT because you know what you need. But junior engineer doesn't know what they need here because, well, even if they identify the problem, they may not know how to solve it exactly.
But don't you think that think like ChatGPT and Copilot, they create the situation where the guy who wants to become data scientist, he need to learn much more to become valuable person because a few years ago he could start from junior position and write in some small snippet, but nowadays it will be useless position and there will be less amount of guys who will solve some easy problems, and you will need to learn more and to invest more into this. What do you think about this problem?
Yes and no. I think that's relevant to any tools, not only Copilot like or GPT like or whatever. So I don't know. 10 years ago, it was possible to develop software without Docker. And now, if you are not familiar with Docker, most likely you are a very useless person in your engineering team. Or, for example, same with cloud, same with many other technologies that became part of everyday work. Like 10 years ago, many teams did not use CI. 20 years ago, I think many teams did not use some code control systems, code version control. So, of course, new tools appear, and unfortunately, people have to adapt them. And for junior, it becomes more and more complicated. Like, let's say, computer science is still the same, and you still need to know some basics about algorithms, about data structures, and all the stuff. But the software engineering aspect of work becomes more and more complicated because there are new higher level tools and you need to adapt them one by one. Like 20 years ago, uh, you could just you could know how to write code and it was okay. And now you need to be able this tool and that tool and interconnect blocks between tools. And that's very important. But from the other perspective, you don't have to be that good with low level as you used to be. And it may change. I mean, these requirements may be even lower in the future. So, like, if you were to write some software many years ago, you had to know some lower level language. You have to be careful with pointers. You have to care about memory leaks, yada yada. And now, I don't know exact percentage, but there are many people who don't even know what is a pointer and how data lies in memory. You just take this high-level API and that high-level API, and you just make it work with 10 lines of code. So,
And when something will stop working, no one can solve the problem. Yes, it's pretty familiar situation. And let's speak from different side. what do you think about services like Sensebox, Supervisely, RoboFlow, and so on? Right now, they're trying to become some universal platform. You can label your data internally, analyze the data, and some distribution and the model quality, and of course building learning pipelines. And for example, working with such platform, you don't need to write your code anymore to train your model, to collect data, to stream this data in your model. Of course, they're not working perfectly, in my opinion, at this time, but probably what do you think about the future? Might it turn to something like a website constructor or something like this?
It's a very good question, and I have no good answer here. I'm not a big fan of these kind of platforms. To me personally, everything I say here is very personal, and it does not reflect the future or any estimates how the future will turn. But I think currently these kind of platforms are very often like leaky abstractions. So I like working on high level and I like using powerful tools, but I don't like tools that I have no influence on. So for example, I enjoy AWS providing me instances when I need or database when I need and perfect scalability and so on. But at the same time, I have a lot of control. I can spawn that many instances as I need. I can understand the higher level, and I don't care about low level implementation. But in case of some platform that will do all this auto sorry, something with my sound. So in case of platforms that tries to do everything for me, all this AutoML, all this labeling and data distribution checks and whatever, most likely for my particular problem, for problems I've been working with, it will not fit exactly. And when you use higher level tool to solve your problem and it does not match your expectations, you're doomed because you have to build some shortcuts here and there to make it work. And it may be even more complicated than build your pipeline from scratch.
Yes, but such platforms, they try to change themselves. For example, a lot of them have internally like Jupyter notebook or some other stuff with which you can just change some points of code, some points of preparation, and working in this stack. I saw just saw a few guys who use such platforms, and it's pretty interesting to look how they work because it's also completely changing the process, like ChatGPT or Copilot, but it's from completely different perspective. And my next question is about what do you think if one of such platform will how and how such platform can combine with ChatGPT, because it will be very powerful tool when you can just write prompt to collect such data set and the platform generate task to labeling teams. Then you just put this data to this model and everything will flow. What do you think when such platform will appear?
I'm not a prophet here again, so it's hard to say when. I'm not waiting for something like this again because I need more control. For example, I would like the use case when I can enter some prompt and it will generate some, I don't know, YAML or JSON file with some declarative stuff what I need. Like I don't want to build everything from scratch. It can give me some suggestion. I can review it, and after it is reviewed, I can launch it, or maybe request some labels from labeling team in Mechanical Turk or any other platform. That could be useful. But when the platform just tries to vendor lock in me for the platform itself, I don't know. I'm skeptical. Obviously, there are some platforms that are already here, and we can do nothing about it. And at the same time, they are kind of reliable. I'm speaking about big clouds or something like this. But I would prefer to avoid login for just some another startup that suggests some ML ops everything as a service. That's very personal. For example, I don't like even many people like weights and biases and other tools because they have fancy charts, and to me, it's not something useful. I prefer using old school TensorBoard or even something more tailored for myself to have more control.
Yes, exactly. But I like tools with open source that you can run on your local server. And for me, the most powerful MLOps tools to train in models and verify them, it's ClearML, because in it you just can store a lot of experiments. You can run them through a team and share them through a team. And but you are not vendor locked because you have all the sources, and it's, in my opinion, it's the most critical point for such platforms.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the second problem with such platforms, it's edge development, because with edge development you need none of this platform except edge impulse could work with edge devices, and it's a different problem, because in my opinion the future is on the edge, because the price for some NPU chip is extremely low, and you can just run all your ML on the edge and store and send to cloud just few prompts about what do you see and stuff like this. But what about when speaking about ChatGPT and such language models? What do you expect from ChatGPT from GPT-4 that will be released pretty soon?
It's a very good question. Again, I don't exactly know. There are so many rumors about it. Like, will it be multimodal? We don't know. Will it be like 1 billion parameters or 1,000 billion? We know approximately nothing. I think we need to trust that rumors about the expected quality. Like there will be a leap comparable to what we had between GPT-2 and GPT-3. And I think there should be something comparable to ChatGPT experience, maybe better. I'm not sure. Again, what's interesting now, I think that many companies and many people are exploring use cases, and many use cases are unlocked by existing tools like ChatGPT or GPT-3. They are not perfect, but that's something to check. And if some use case is somewhat workable with GPT-3, it will be working smooth with GPT-4. So we'll see. It's already time when the tech is almost ready, and we are sure that tech will be ready. And it's more the question of use cases and tools and user experience and so on and so forth. So maybe GPT-4 will not cover all these use cases. Maybe its quality will not be enough, but GPT-5 will cover it. So it's just a question of time. And will it be next year or like in 2 years? Does it really matter?
Yes, but what do you think about the price of inferences model? Because for ChatGPT, it's about few cents per inference, and if ChatGPT 4 will be like few hundred times more powerful model, it will be like few dollars.
I don't think it will be a few dollars. Like OpenAI has enough money in their pockets to uh, give us a try with somewhat reasonable prices for now. That's one thing. And obviously, at some point, inner costs will go down. And also, I hope at some point we will see cheaper and even open source alternatives to OpenAI. Like you remember when GPT-2 only appeared, it was wow, wow, and nothing can beat them. But now you can just download a very similar model from Hugging Face, some GPT Neo or something like this, and it will have a better performance than GPT-2, but worse than GPT-3. And you can run it locally on very cheap hardware. So I believe that thanks to big companies that are really open and they open source their results, we will see models that will be comparable to GPT-3 in terms of quality very soon. And not for GPT-4 for now, but again, it will become more and more available.
Okay, and my next questions will be about the place of developers in this world, and let's start from now. And what do you think at this point will distinguish a good developer from bad developer in data science, ML, and around?
Same as in other fields of software engineering, I can be very, I'm very confident that the best trait for software engineer is to make shit done. And this ability will be valuable, and it will be valuable no matter what kind of tools will appear, GPT-3, GPT-4, GPT Magic, whatever. Because you need to solve problems, you need to identify problems, and you need to solve problems. And what you use is just a question of your tools. And now some people prefer one tool, other people prefer other tools. Does it really matter? Not really. Some tools make you more productive, some do not. And you only need to care about being productive, choose the right tools for right kind of problems.
But don't you think that for data science developer, the main tool is ability to communicate? Because in my opinion, the data science is much more about communication than backend or front-end development. Because with backend and front-end, after you set the task, you can just start working with this task, and of course you need to like to communicate with everyone, you need to look how your thing will work. But data science is in some task it's like 90% about communication and not about writing codes. It's about looking for some business insight. It's about to communicate how guys will use your product and so on. Because I don't think that any other developer specialty about communication. What do you think about this?
Okay, maybe I'm a little biased because I've worked for startups mostly. I think for last 7 years, only startups or something like this. So in startups, you rarely just need to write code. Most likely, you need to identify the problem and solve the problem, and you are involved from the very beginning. Probably in some big companies and maybe not very tech-oriented companies, the structure is like there is a wise architect in the ivory tower who will talk to some business people, and later they will talk to some business analysts, and they will write a specification, and this specification will spawn tasks in Jira, and you only take some tasks in Jira and you translate them to code. And later some QA engineers will test it according to this task and all this boring workflow. But at some point, if you are on a proper level, you just need to take some problem related to a product, to a business, and solve it. And obviously, in some cases, you need more communication and more discovery skills to understand what exactly do you need. Because, well, of course, if you are in some very old school company, as I described recently, there is a chance there will be a person that will describe everything to you, and you just need to transpile stuff. And in this case, your position is at risk, of course, because at some point, maybe ChatGPT will transpile requirements to Python code better. Like if you need just solve simple tasks. But the more impact you are going to have, the more communication skills you need.
Yes, but and what do you think about knowledge of mathematics? Do you think it's important now for developers, and how deep developers should know mathematics, like which part of math, and what do you think will they need it in future?
Personally, I think people need to choose something where they shine and choose something where they do not suck. So, for example, from speaking for myself, I'm deeply bad at math, and very often when I need to solve some math-related problem, it will take me maybe 3, 5 more time than it takes to a random junior engineer in my team. It happens, yeah. I know I suck, and what what I did and what's my position here, I will just try to get to the level where, well, I can understand what I need, and if I need something, I can open textbook and maybe slowly, maybe with several iterations, I will solve this problem. And thank you, ChatGPT, you help. But definitely there are some math skills that are required. You should be able to at least understand papers. You should be able to do some basic optimizations when needed, and so on and so forth. But if you are not bright in this, you should not try to be on the edge here. But at the same time, I know people who are definitely brilliant in terms of math theory, of machine learning, and so on and so forth. And they definitely should leverage from it. So just find where you shine and try to develop yourself while keeping your other skills on minimum viable level. So like all this T-shaped stuff.
Yes, I also at the start I was trying to when I hire some people in startups that I was related, or when I consult in some guys who are hiring. 10 years ago, I was about, yes, all guys should know mathematics, but nowadays I'm more about what problem do you have? Okay, then the person that you hire should know just this part and nothing more. And in my opinion, the level of math nowadays it's decreasing because you don't need some statistic knowledge if you just run in, I don't know, YOLO V5 or something like this. But of course, you need pretty deep understanding about 3D geometry if you start working with 3D data, and you should know how rotation matrices are working and so on.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is also very important when you are working with some kind of optimization. So if you have some code and you need to make it like 10 times faster, 100 times faster, there are some algorithmic and mathematical tricks that you may need to apply. And you cannot just use your libraries as is because, well, libraries are definitely optimized for some average use case, and your use case is never average. So yeah, sometimes it is needed. And 3D geometry 3D geometry is one of these things. It's kind of math heavy. I remember reading this textbook. It was really hard for me.
Yes, exactly. And in my opinion, 3D geometry is a point where ChatGPT, I don't know uh, what ChatGPT should able to do to help with 3D geometry, because to formulate the task, you first need to deeply understanding what, for example, what system of coordinate you want to make translation from, and when you have this understanding, you just can write one function and everything will work. But without this understanding, nothing will help. And but it's just small part of data science, in my opinion, and it's not about everything. And
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I have a little story here. So I worked for the company that was doing augmented reality stuff, and we definitely needed some 3D geometry, which I barely knew. And what helped us to move faster and deliver stuff and have faster iterations, experiments, yada yada, we spent some time building our toolkit for very basic primitives. Like, obviously, when you work with this stuff, you need to convert like from torch primitives to OpenCV primitives, like quaternions to Rodriguez's and to rotation matrix, and so on and so forth. And it took a while to build one with all our use cases. And that's where ChatGPT would be useful because, well, you can ask it to suggest a function that will just convert your rotation matrix as a torch tensor to the NumPy Rodriguez, but it took a little while back in days because I had to, okay, I need to open documentation for OpenCV. I need to open the textbook and check and later write some tests. So definitely it would speed up things these days.
and my last question is about where do you think data science developer will move in 5 years? I don't know. Don't you think that it will be like only product manager who just almost doesn't write code, or do you think that everything will look like nowadays? And what is your vision of this?
there will be evolution, not revolution, in terms of how we work, I think. And definitely tools will be way more powerful, but still, as engineers, we do not spend most of our time writing code. And maybe we will spend slightly less time writing code, but there are still many aspects of our work, like understanding the problem, communicating, discussing solutions, designing stuff. Definitely, we will still have to design systems, and we need to understand what we design. So we will have more high-level work and less low-level work. So maybe it means those who are on, let's say, maybe people will work on a level higher in terms of typical grades, like those who are called middle engineers these days, and they will work with problems that are solved by senior engineers these days, and same for seniors and staff engineers, and so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you very much for such interesting interview. I hope our viewer will like it too. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope so. Thanks, Anton.